That's tapping.
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the mustacheandthebeard.com.
Two great geeks changing the world. One post at a time.
All right, so here we are doing essential movies for the Cinephile, CAMPY number 16, our Class of Dracula.
Woohoo! And who are you?
Yes, I was getting there. My name is Louis Matos. I am the Mustache, and we in the Mustache and the Beard have a classic video library, classic Archived Motion Picture Yearbook with our unambiguous criteria. But before that, I am sharing this video with my best buddy,
Junior Figueroa, aka The Beard, coming to you live from sunny Puerto Rico. And it is sunny. It keeps threatening to rain. You keep hearing thunder. But for right now, it is sunny Puerto Rico.
So if the lights go out, you'll know why.
You'll know why. Because when we get a thunderstorm, we lose power.
Yes, but we still have power.
Power. You know why we have power? Because we're beautiful.
All right, so as I already mentioned, this is the Mustache and the Beard's classic video library. So we always go through criteria to make this unambiguous.
Right. Because our definition of classic is not everybody else's definition of classic.
Yeah, but our number one criteria is that both the Mustache and the Beard must agree, because it's our classic video library.
That's right.
So that's the first thing, is that we both must agree, or else it's not getting in.
And it's not getting in. And believe me, there have been movies where we have disagreed, and it hasn't come in.
Vehemently. All right, so not that we don't need to fight over it. No. There's so many movies. All right, so for our classic, you had mentioned classic as we define classic. So tell them a little bit about how we define classic.
Okay, first it has to have longevity.
Yes.
We don't believe in that instant classic nonsense. You know, it has to have stood the test of time. Okay, people have to be talking about it still.
And we attach a number to that,
right,
which is 50 years. It has to be longer than 50.
Longer than 50.
Yes. So that's the first longevity. Then it's exceptional. It must be exceptional in some subjective way, which we will argue for.
Right. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be big budget. And we're not talking about money. We're not talking about lavish sets. We're not talking about cast of thousands. It could be small, independent. It's got something. Movie makers managed to capture lightning in a bottle, and it has to have that special something.
All right, and then paradigm shift.
Right, it has to have affected the industry in some way, and you can tell that by there's certain things, like, for example, does it have sequels? If a movie has sequels, it has to be special.
Yes, absolutely.
Has it been remade?
Yes. They're not going to make a crappy movie, a remake from something crappy.
Crappy, right. Has it been remade? Okay, that means that there was something special. Did it lead to a genre shift? You know, for example, in the 60s, you had that secret agent movies, and then in the 70s we got hit with the blaxploitation movies and the kung fu movies. Right. Yeah, it created a genre, or maybe it created a TV show. Look at, for example, the movie MASH created a TV show that lasted 11 years. So in some way, there's a paradigm shift,
and we'll discuss that too. Our genre classification is always part of every one of our posts, so we always argue for it because it's a pet peeve of ours.
Yeah, because we don't like the way Hollywood classifies.
They just do it in the most generic way, and we want it to be specific. As always, our listings are in chronological order, not best to last or last to best. They're all beloved, so therefore we do it according to age.
Age, right.
And then all of our recommendations, these are all recommendations, but we reserve the right to, at the end of everything, give you our rating.
Right, and also why we recommend it. Why, there's a point that we'll tell you why this movie is special to us.
We're going to start with our 16th class of Dracula. Without further ado,
yes, Dracula.
CAMPY number 16 for all of you begins with our number 50 movie, Dracula. 1931.
Bela Lugosi.
It is a pre-code American supernatural horror film directed by and co-produced by Todd Browning from a screenplay written by Garrett Fort based on the 1924 stage play adapted from the 1897 novel Dracula by Bram Stoker.
Yes.
In the movie, Count Dracula, a vampire, emigrates from Transylvania to England where he continues to feed on the blood of his victims. The movie stars are Bela Lugosi, David Manners, Dwight Fry,
whom we love,
Helen Chandler, and Edward Van Sloan. It is produced and distributed by Universal Pictures.
Dracula. The very mention of the name brings to mind things so evil, so fantastic, so degrading. You wonder if it isn't all a dream, a nightmare.
Rats. Rats. Thousands. Millions of them.
But no, this is no dream. This is Dracula, the original terrifying story of a maniac and a man who lived after death, lived on human blood, took the form of a vampire bat, and lured innocent girls to a fate truly worse than death.
Dracula? Oh, what's he done to you, dearie? Tell me.
He came to me. He opened a vein in his arm, and he made me drink.
So genre classification is horror, easily. Longevity is 2021 to 1931, 90 years. It is way greater than 50 years, so therefore it is eligible to be in our classic video library.
More than
All right, Beard, tell me how this movie is exceptional.
It's exceptionally boring. No, it's not. That's not true. It's actually exceptionally well done. Both this movie and Frankenstein, which both came out in 1931. This one actually predating Frankenstein. You could tell that it was a labor of love. You could tell that the sets were lavished over. The cinematography, the vistas. You know, you and I always talk about the sweeping vistas. You could tell that because the reason why it stands out to me is that so often horror movies are often belittled, especially older horror movies are usually often belittled by having poor production values, poor acting, poor directing, poor cinematography, and yet you see this movie and Frankenstein, and it's been remastered, so you don't have the crackle and the pops and you're seeing how it was meant to be seen, and you can tell that it is such a labor of love. It was taken seriously. Yeah, it was horror. This is serious horror. We may look at it and be a little jaded because how many Dracula movies have we seen? But this was the first, and they were taking it seriously. This was the big times, and it comes across when you watch this movie. It comes across. This is the big time. So I find it exceptional in that sense. Mm-hmm. How did you find it exceptional?
Okay, Bela Lugosi had played Dracula in the plays.
Right.
He was on Broadway.
On Broadway.
And Carl Laemmle Jr., which is an executive for Universal. In fact, his father owned the company. So Carl Laemmle Jr. had intentionally said, we're going to do horror. But he didn't want Bela Lugosi. Even though Bela Lugosi, he wanted Lon Chaney Sr.
Right.
He wanted Lon Chaney Sr., but Lon Chaney Sr. unfortunately passed away 3 months before they were scheduled for production. So then Bela Lugosi started wearing the cape.
Yeah.
He wore a cape all over Los Angeles. He goes to restaurants and he's wearing the cape, and majestically walking around, campaigning, in essence, saying, I am Dracula, and then finally, he tells Carl Laemmle Jr., I'll do the movie for $500 a week. Can you believe that? $500 a week for 7 weeks. He made $3,500
out of this movie. Yeah.
Just absolutely, because he wanted the role. That's exceptional to me. When Bela knew the film was up for grabs, he wore the iconic cape. He would go to restaurants, pose dramatically. That sense of drama is overt in this movie. I mean, the fact that he moves his hands and his fingers a certain way, and his eyes. And, Todd Browning focusing on the eyes.
The intensity.
Yeah, so...
and he understood the character.
Yes. In fact, everyone on the set that was interviewed said Bela never talked to them. He intentionally stayed away from them to keep that
in character.
Yeah, that mythos. So the accent on these famous iconic words, the blood is the life, the accent on listen to them, the children of the night, what beautiful music they make. Right, so
I love that line.
So Bela played Dracula in only one other movie, which is another thing that is important. He was paid $3,500 for this movie. Listen, he is awesome in this movie, and he makes all the people around him better just because of the way that he did it. So yes, that makes it exceptional. And I'm not talking about anything else other than Bela Lugosi deserves that, because I'm going to gush about the other guy. I wanted to give him...
We're going to gush about the other guy.
Paradigm shift, Beard, what do you think?
Well, there's actually...
I mean, that's going to be really hard for you.
No, that's the thing. It's on multiple levels. Because it's an obvious paradigm shift that it's the first, although not the first Dracula movie.
First talkie.
But it's the first Dracula talkie.
Mm-hmm.
So without this movie, we would not have had all those other Dracula movies.
200 of them.
Yeah. So that's a paradigm shift there. But it's also the first of these universal horror movies that Universal became known for its horror movies in the 30s and 40s. And this is the first one. So therefore, that's a paradigm shift as well.
Yeah, before Frankenstein.
Before Frankenstein. It predates, only by a few months, but it predates, those are two blockbusters. You can imagine that in 1 year.
I know.
Coming out with Dracula and Frankenstein.
No wonder they decided, I'm going to focus on horror.
Oh my God. Incredible. Incredible. And they created a genre. Not that they created the horror genre per se, because there were horror movies prior to this, but they turned it into something big. They turned it into they legitimized horror. I think they legitimized horror. So that's a paradigm shift. What do you think?
I also, because I want to focus so much on Bela Lugosi iconized the cape.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, by wearing the cape, which, you know, you think that's kind of ridiculous, but you know what? He made it cool.
No, and the thing is that in those that remember when the story was written, remember when the movie came out, people wore opera capes to go out. They wore capes. They wore a cape to go to the opera. They wore a cape to go to a show. They did that. They wore capes and they wore the top hat and they carried a cane, and you know, it was considered cool.
Bella didn't want to be typecast. But he says he didn't want to be typecast, but he wore the cape around town.
He campaigned for the role, and then after he got it, and after he made the movie, he said, "I don't want to be typecast."
But he's wearing the cape everywhere, and he did other vampire movies where he did not do Dracula.
Right.
And still, love him, and in fact, the cape and him were so attached that he was buried in his cape. So, I mean, dying.
And he's a great-looking Dracula. See, this is the other thing. You can't, because so much time has passed. Often people think of Bela Lugosi as he looked late in life, and as he played those other vampires, and when he played Dracula again. But in this movie, it's 1931. Bela looks gorgeous. He looks gorgeous. He's a very handsome man, very tall, very stately, and it comes across.
Later on in his life, Bela became drug addicted. And so he did all of these other movies for cheap, just to get a fix. And it's a very sad and tragic ending that he died a pauper after making so many movies, after being an icon. That's really sad. So I wanted to mention it because we have gushed about Bela Lugosi. It's all warranted, but I wanted to make sure you understand why we're gushing. Is the fact that, you know, tragically, this great actor ended his life. Well, his life ended with no money.
Sad.
Yes, it is sad. This movie was preserved by the American Film Institute, so it is judged to be, you know, historically and culturally significant. So all of that. So this movie deserves to be the first, and it is a paradigm shift for us. Ratings. You want to do a rating?
I would give it a 4.5 Great Geeks. The only complaint that I have about this movie, and it's not probably not a fair complaint. The only complaint that I have about this movie is that because it is based on a play, it looks like a play.
Yes.
There is a lot of talking, and the action of the movie is slow. It's somewhat slow moving. Movies based on plays are usually like that.
Static camera.
Yes, static camera.
They move around in there.
And the players do a lot of talking. There's a lot of exposition. So, and it didn't hurt the movie at the time because again it's the first one. But then when you get later on where you get vampire movies and Dracula movies that are so action oriented, running and jumping and leaping and so then you look at this and you're like, you know,
it pales in comparison.
It pales in comparison, but again, it's unfair. It's unfair because this is the first. So that's why I only took off half a Great Geek. I give it a 4.5 Great Geek.
That's exactly my rating as well. 4.5 Great Geeks. It is groundbreaking. Yes, we love it. The fact that the static camera is an issue for me too. Yeah. It is 4.5 Great Geeks because of that. But I loved his authentic accent.
Yes, he's Hungarian.
It adds to the movie.
Yes.
So it's just great. Yeah, so 4.5 Great Geeks as well. So now comes the fun part, inducting. So it is with great pride and respect that we induct Dracula, 1931, as our movie number 50 into the Mustache and the Beard's Classic Video Library Classic Archived Motion Picture Yearbook. Take a bow. All right, so
now we have a special treat.
Yes,
now.
this one is unique because we wouldn't have even noticed it unless you'd have that Legends collection.
And I didn't even notice it on the Legends collection. It is Norman Baumgartner who pointed this out to me. My cousin Norman pointed this out to me. I did not even know that this existed.
Yes. And so our movie number 51 is Dracula, which is Spanish version. It's 1931. It is the same sets, the same
It is
time.
filmed at the same time. By day, they filmed the English version. At night, using the same sets, they filmed the Spanish version.
All right, so Dracula is an American horror film, pre-code directed by George Melford, based on the novel by Bram Stoker and the Broadway play. It was filmed simultaneous to the Todd Browning version on the same sets in the same place. Todd Browning would film during the day, and Melford would film at night after watching the dailies for the English version.
Explain to them why they well, you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead. What? I don't even know what question you're...
No, why they did that? Why?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, say.
Well, remember that the movie industry was in transition right now. It was transitioning from silent movies into talkies, right? Back in the silent movie era, they didn't have to worry about making another movie for the foreign market, because all you had to do is change the title cards from English to Spanish, German, French, Italian. It didn't matter. Mm-hmm. But now with the talkies, they couldn't do that. So rather than do dubbing,
which they hadn't even thought of yet.
They hadn't even thought of dubbing yet. What they would do is that they would, at the same time as making the American version, they would film a foreign version using the same sets and costumes and all of that.
Actors,
just different actors speaking another language. It's the same story, just translated. They did that for a while. Anyway, that's why I don't want to spoil what's coming up. That's why they did that. This is how we wind up with two versions of Dracula, one in English and one in Spanish, all from 1931. And what we're reviewing now, what we're evaluating now, is the Spanish version.
The movie stars Carlos Villarias,
Right.
Lupita Tovar, Pablo Alvarez Rubio, Renfield, Carmen Guerrero, and Eduardo Arosamena. This is a Universal picture, produced and distributed, and released in Cuba in 1931. So all of that was specifically for Cuba because it wasn't released in other places until later. Despite being a replica of Bela Lugosi's Dracula, almost shot for shot, there were scenes that were allowed to linger a little more in this movie. This movie is almost 30 minutes longer.
Yeah, it's 30 minutes.
Soy Drácula. No podía usted ser más oportuno.
La sangre de Drácula corre ya por las venas de la señorita Seward. Seguirá ella viviendo por toda la eternidad, lo mismo que he vivido yo. Venga. Aquí. Detente. No moverás tu mano hasta que yo lo quiera.
Alright, so genre classification, it is horror. Longevity, it is 2021 to 1931, so it is 90 years, just like the other. So it is greater than 50 years. It is eligible to be in a CAMPY.
Yes. let me reiterate that I love the Bela Lugosi Dracula in 1931. I absolutely love the movie, but I kind of enjoyed this movie more. It is more kinetic. Okay, it is. There's a little more movement. Perhaps it's the fact that Hispanics tend to be, like me. I talk with my hands. I do.
And if you tied our hands, we wouldn't be able to speak.
We wouldn't be able to speak. So perhaps it's because of that, and we also tend to be a bit more flowery in our speech, which is, I think, one of the reasons why the movie winds up being longer, because the director allowed his actors to be more expressive. But there's more movement. The scene where Van Helsing realizes that Dracula is a vampire, it gets confirmed because he casts no reflection, right? It's minor. Bela Lugosi's reaction is minor compared to the Spanish version, where he actually smashes the mirror,
the little box,
with the mirror, and he smashes it. So it's little things like that for me. I enjoyed it. It made me enjoy it more. Also, the fact that I didn't. It's not a problem with me the language, because they happen to be Spanish, right? So it's not a case where I had to be reading the subtitles. I could watch and enjoy the movie, and it's just, and the women. Oh yes, it's a Spanish sensibility. Her dresses, her gowns are lower cut. They're lower cut. They're emphasizing her sexuality, which for me, I'm enjoying that. I was enjoying that. So that's why for me this movie is exceptional. Not that the other one wasn't exceptional, but this
it's different in a different way.
And it's exceptional in a different way. Yeah, thank you.
I completely agree with what you said. Carlos Villarias is fantastic to me. Now, Bella does this, but Carlos Villarias does this, right? And he's like going like this. He doesn't move his fingers as much. He moves his hands, right? And he uses both of them. Where Browning lights Lugosi's eyes, Villarias doesn't need his eyes lit. I mean, his intensity is obvious.
Did you notice? He did that thing that Christopher Lee does. Christopher Lee loves Cape. And he would when he was going to bite someone, he would cover it with his cape, and he does that in this.
Yes, and it's very necessary because the codes in that time.
Yeah, right. I know.
No, go ahead.
I don't know if you were going to talk about this. They don't show the bites.
No, they never do.
In the English version. No, but they showed the marks. They don't show the marks in the English version. They show the marks in the Spanish version.
You're right.
Different sensibilities. So in other words, they didn't show her neck in the English version with the two holes. They do that in the Spanish version. I'm sorry.
No, Lupita Tovar introduced the movie in the Legends collection, and she talks about arriving early to the set before everybody else, and this is night, and she would be creeped out just on the set. And she, because this was one of her first movies, she didn't know that you arrived late. Her wardrobe was different, like you said.
Yeah.
The low cut. She said, I didn't even realize it until she saw the English version. Wait, she says that Helen Chandler, her dress is different than my dress. My dress is really low cut. And in fact, the other girl who plays Lucy hers is see-through.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, Pablo Alvarez Rubio is better than Dwight Fry, which is hard to say. All right,
Because we're big Dwight Fry fans.
but this movie is better in almost every measurable way, in my opinion, and not just mine. Everybody that would see it afterwards, they were like, "Wait a second, where has this version been hiding?" So yes, excellent movie. Paradigm Shift.
Paradigm Shift.
It was one of the last. It was one of the last that of those movies that were switching over from the silent to talkies, because it made so little money. It made so little money. Yeah. So even though the Spanish version, to my mind, is better. It blew at the box office, of course, with limited distribution.
Yeah.
Of course, if you're only distributing to certain places, it's not going to do as well.
Where can you show it?
Yeah.
Cuba, Mexico, Spain.
That's pretty
I
much
mean,
it.
I don't mean that as a criticism.
No, right.
But
Anywhere in
can
Central
you-
America, but the Central American people are so poor, they probably couldn't afford to go
Yeah,
to
no.
movies anyway.
There's how big a market is it? Back in 1931. So where did it go? Mexico City, right? Where did it go? Madrid. Where else could it go?
All right, so I'm going to give my ratings first, because you did last time.
Yeah, go ahead.
4.5 Great Geeks, even though I consider this movie better in almost every measurable way, because it was limited distribution, some of the parts in this movie are grainy, because it's not as well preserved.
Right.
Right?
As a matter of fact, isn't there a whole like scene that is slightly out of focus?
It's completely
because they had to cobble it together.
Yeah, it was originally cut, and then they put it back in. And so even on this Legends collection, where you get a pristine copy, there's a part where it is awful. I mean, it is just absolutely awful. So yeah, when clearly not as well treated as the switch from silent to talkies occurred. They tried to make movies international. This did so poorly that this is the end of doing this. They were like, we may as well just put somebody Spanish speaking the parts, and that's when they came up with the idea of dubbing. Because they were like, to have them do a whole new movie, lighting, script, all of that stuff, and pay for that. And then, so they figured, you know what, we'll just do dubbing. And so that's the end, but 4.5 Great Geeks is my rating. What do you say?
I agree with you entirely, and I also want to give it 4.5 Great Geeks. I enjoyed this movie a little bit more than the Bella movie. I think it's the better movie of the two. If you're going to compare, I think it's the better of the two, but not by that much. So I'm giving it, like you, 4.5 Great Geeks.
All right, so it is with great pride and respect that we induct Dracula, the Spanish version, 1931, as our movie number 51, into the Mustache and the Beard's Classic Video Library, Classic Archived Motion Picture Yearbook. Take a bow. All right, and so now with our
right along,
our last movie for this video is we'll do a little. Is movie number 52, Horror of Dracula.
Horror of Dracula.
1958. All right. It is a British Gothic horror film, Horror of Dracula, 1958, directed by Terence Fisher.
Yay.
Written by Jimmy Sangster.
Yay.
All of those nominated in our Horror Hall of Fame.
Although, and then as you mention it,
don't forget to vote. All right, the first in a series of Hammer horror films, starring Christopher Lee as the titular Count and Peter Cushing as Dr. Van Helsing. In Great Britain, the movie was simply called Dracula. but retitled in the United States as Horror of Dracula, simply to avoid confusion with the Lugosi version. Hammer Horror Films produced and Universal distributed. So aside from Lee and Cushing, it's Michael Guff plays Arthur Homewood, Melissa Stribling is Mina Homewood, Carol Marsh is Lucy Homewood, John Van Essing is Jonathan Harker. So take note that there is no Renfield character in this movie. Alright, so genre classification is horror.
This is the story of Dracula, a creature who destroys all whom he touches. Dracula the terrifying, the feared, who sleeps in the tombs of the dead by day and arises at night to inflict his terror upon the innocent and the unsuspecting.
Oh, you must help me. You must. You're my only hope. You must.
I'll help you. I promise.
Please try and understand. This is not Lucy, the sister you loved. It's only a shell, possessed and corrupted by the evil of Dracula.
How do you destroy a fiend who has so far proven himself indestructible? Those who come to end his reign of terror stay to become his victims.
Castle Dracula is somewhere here in Klausenberg. Will you tell me how I get there?
You ordered a meal, sir. As an innkeeper, it's my duty to serve you. When you've eaten, I ask you to go and leave us in peace.
This is the doctor who dares to challenge the vampire Dracula. This is the anguished man who fears for the lives of his beloved, the girl who is his sister, and the one that is his wife. Dracula, the bedeviled master of all that is evil.
Longevity is 2021. Take away 1958, which is 63 years, which is more than 50.
That's right.
This movie's exceptional. I know that you love this movie, so I'm going to let you talk after I do.
Okay.
In 82 minutes, Christopher Lee is in 7 minutes of this movie. The emphasis was more of a sexual presence. When we first see Melissa Stribling as Mrs. Homewood, she appears frumpy and sexually repressed, but when she returns to the Homewood household after having spent the night out,
Right. With Dracula.
she is breathy and bright-eyed and rosy-cheeked,
She's glowing.
as if it's been the best sex she ever had, which
Yes.
is what Terrence Fisher said, told her. You need to look as if you just had the best sex you've ever had. Carol, playing Lucy, and Carol Marsh, which I told you, she looks 12 years old in this movie.
Yes, she does. She does.
And yet she and Melissa Stribling are the exact same age. They're both 31, and they both, they look different ages. It's amazing. Carol, playing Lucy, is an innocent girl, but opens the window and her dressing gown ready for Dracula. She's like,
And she's covered from neck to toe, right? But then she opens that window, she's standing there, the light is coming from out there in here, and you can see right through that thing.
yeah. And again, she looks like a little girl, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh my God,
God.
I'm feeling a little bad. That's why I checked her age. I was like, and I couldn't believe that she and Melissa Stribling were the same exact age. I mean, I think they were 2 months apart, And I'm thinking to myself, wow, they really made Melissa Strickland look like an older woman, not ugly, gorgeous, mind you, but you know, Carol Marsh. I was like, this is a little girl. And
you're like looking. You're like, should I be looking at this? Should I turn away?
Yeah.
But I paid for this movie.
Yeah. So yes, that's all I got to say. Yes, it's a sexy, very sexy version.
I agree wholeheartedly with everything that you said. Absolutely. And that's part of. It's not just a remake. It's I guess we would call it nowadays a reboot.
All right, paradigm shift.
Again, it's similar to Bella in the sense that it's the first of a series of Dracula movies with Christopher Lee as Dracula and Peter Cushing as Van Helsing, right? And it is the first of the Hammer films. So Hammer, which in the 60s and 70s was known for its horror movies. So in that respect, it is a paradigm shift in two ways.
Yeah, it's the one in the line of 9. I mean, 9 Hammer films that are with either Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. So, I mean, they made most of them together, but, some of them, one was working, the other one was not. The emphasis for Terence Fisher basically was, he's supposed to be heroic, romantic, and sexual. And to me, I think he succeeded in the romantic and sexual. The heroic, Dracula's a bad guy. Yeah, so I don't know what the heroic part of that was. But yeah, and it's funny that Christopher Lee said the same thing, because he was quoting his director. But yeah, it's Dracula's a bad guy in this. And let me tell you, Christopher Lee pays the price for being the actor that he is, because they put contact lenses on him that affected his eyesight for the rest of his life. So the red contact lenses, that is just. But this is what people pay for their craft.
For their craft, yeah.
So yeah, excellent movie. I agree with you. Ratings.
Louis, I apologize, but I love the Hammer Dracula movies so much. I don't know if I'm actually being honest. I'm going to go with 4.5 ratings. Okay, it's just that I love this movie. I really love this movie, and I really love Christopher Lee as Dracula, and I really love. Oh my God, Peter Cushing never looked better. He never looked better, and his Van Helsing. Oh my God. And then Michael Goff.
Didn't mention him at all.
Yeah,
he's definitely a great.
Michael Goff of people nowadays would know him as Alfred in the Batman movies, Michael Keaton's Batman movies. He's playing the second romantic lead in this movie. In effect, kind of like Watson to Van Helsing. I suppose I could nitpick and bring the rating down, but I'm not going to. I'm going to leave it at 4.5. You probably disagree with me, but I'm going to leave it at 4.5. Wow.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. This movie has more action. This movie has heart.
Yes,
with Michael Goff's character, which
yes.
I really didn't go into. Peter Cushing is very representative of Van Helsing. Dracula, again, is a sexual but a horrifying villain. And so Christopher Lee did a fantastic job and trying to make you not think of Bela Lugosi when he takes over this role, and I was blown away by this movie. I was blown away by the females, of course, because it's a Hammer movie. But again, you know, how I told you from the beginning how I felt about Carol Marsh. And I was like, I feel uncomfortable that they sexualize this little girl. And then I go and I look, and she was 31 years old. She's 31. So I was like, okay, well, you know, I don't feel so guilty anymore. But, you know, I was lucky enough that I could go into IMDb and see, you know, whereas, you know, somebody at that time might have been like, oh my God, what are they doing to this little girl? I can't believe we walked into a porn movie. And not that there's a porn, anything sexual, overt, you know, but there is this underlying, like, repressive, and then all of a sudden, like, that Dracula frees these women to be a little more liberated.
Dracula is a sexual predator and a seducer.
Yes. Okay?
And it sounds funny because you say, well, wasn't he always? Yeah, but it wasn't as overt as it is in this movie.
All right, so I say 5 great geeks. In case you didn't get that. Yes, I enjoyed this movie. I was, you know, listen, I was, when he suggested it, I looked at it, and, you know, I didn't really need to worry, because I knew that this movie was I remember watching it when I was younger. But there are things that you look at when you're older, and you're like, wow, this is really a good movie. You know, so Hammer knows horror. That's the one theme that I've been getting over this month, is that Hammer, they understood horror, you know. So, and even though they had other things going on and trying to make money, listen, they understood what it is to scare the crap out of people. So, love this movie. All right. So, it is with great pride and respect that we induct Horror of Dracula 1958 as our movie number 52 into the Mustache and the Beard's Classic Video Library, Classic Archived Motion Picture Yearbook. Take a bow. So now you know that, you know, 5 Great Geeks is an objective, because I didn't have the fandom but I'm telling you, I knew that I would love Hammer movies. We've seen them all our lives, watched them. But in undating myself in these Hammer movies, I'm thinking to myself, even the geeky, dorky, you know, silly way that they do bats, I mean, it still shows that they know how to do horror. Mm-hmm. All right, so usually when we come to the end of a video, let's not elongate this anymore because I think we could gush some more.
Christopher Lee?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and then, you know, then you're swaying all the people for voting. All right, so usually when we come to the end of a video, I ask you to give a wise missive.
I have a wise.
Okay, so.
Not very long either. Okay. When you're dead, you don't know that you're dead. You don't realize that you're dead. And the pain is felt by others, those around you. Being stupid is the same way.
With that having been said, it's a very wise missive. I would also ask you to, you know, please vote. You know, we talked about some of the nominees in our
Jimmy Sangster for screenplay, The Horror of Dracula.
We also have Christopher Lee. Peter Cushing has already been inducted, and The Horror of Dracula is one of the movies.
One of the movies, right? Foreign film.
Yeah, and Dracula as well, the Bela Lugosi. All right, so we ask you to vote. If this is the first time you watch one of our videos, please subscribe. We always thank you for watching because we really appreciate everyone. We love all of our viewers. So because we love you, I ask you to please stay safe. We ask you to comment and press the like button. We love you all.
You have any ideas, suggestions, anything that you would like to us to cover or like to see?
Yeah, Geektoberfest is going strong. We have a lot of horror movies that we're covering, horror stuff. And so, as always, I say my name is Louis Matos. I am the Mustache.
I'm Junior Figueroa. I beat the beard.
We say see you later.
Hasta la vista.
Take it easy.
And peace.
Thank you for watching.